There you go. So I'll make you the host again, and please make me a co-host, okay?
Sure.
Well, you have two cameras now.
Indeed. So I think those setup is interesting.
All right, this close-up is really nice.
Thanks. Hi, Shirley.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you today?
I'm great.
Have we met before, Shirley?
Nope.
Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad that you're
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Are you new with Get Set Up, Shirley, or just with my classes?
No, I've had a lot of classes. I just happened to see this one the other day and thought I'd check in with you.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you did. Thanks. Hey, Tony, good to have you back.
Likewise, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
I gotta ask you a good question. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm frying some fried chicken. I need a recipe for some seasoning.
Oh, recipe for some seasoning. Okay, all right.
What you got, real quick?
What? Well, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, little salt and pepper.
What about Boston rub?
Yeah, the rotisserie chicken rub. That's one I don't have on my list today, but if you hang on, maybe we'll take a look at that.
Gotcha.
I have one here actually for myself, but I don't have the, I already mixed it and I don't have the ingredients there that I could give you the recipe, but I can tell you it's got paprika and garlic and onion powder and a little bit of salt and pepper. Yeah.
You're good. Thank you.
Enjoy your chicken.
I'm doing that right now as we speak.
Okay, good. I like that. Cooking while I'm cooking. Okay, let's get started. Good to see all of you today. Thanks for coming. I'm going to share my screen so we can go ahead and get started. Oh. I think. Oops, something went awry here. Sorry. Okay, can you see my slide right now? No, you can't. All right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So Juana, you can't see my slide that says,
I can see you, but I can't see the
You
slide.
have the slides.
okay, let me try this again. Now,
Now we can
Yes.
see it.
beautiful.
Yes, now we got it.
Okay.
Gotcha
All right.
now.
All right. Very good. Well, welcome to Do It Yourself Spice Blends. And I think that this should be a fun class today to talk about different ways that you can use your spices, and a lot of them herbs and spices that you already have in your cupboard. So I know there are a few of you who are new today. My name is Deb Livingston, and I am your guide from York, Pennsylvania. And I am happy to be here with you today. I enjoy talking about all things related to food, and we really learn together. So there's things that I know a lot about and things I know a little bit about, and then I do some research and I share that with you. And in turn, I learn from you as well. So these are always open sessions where your contribution is important. And I really would like to invite all of you, at least here in the beginning, I'd like you to come on camera and just say hi if you would, just so I can make sure that everybody is tuned in and we all are connected well and everything is working properly.
Hello, Deb.
Hello, hello, thank you.
Hello, I'm Greg, and I need more spice in my life.
Who's saying that? Who said that?
Greg.
Greg,
Greg. Okay. Greg, more spice in your life. Don't we all? Hey, Loretta. Hello.
Hi, how you doing, Deb?
Good. Thank you. Good. Good to see you all. All right.
Hello.
So we do learn best when we are on camera and when we can talk to one another. All I would do is say, especially in a group this size, just go ahead and mute yourself when you're not speaking, and that keeps background noise out of the mix. We are live streaming this class, so hello to those of you who are out there in live stream land. We're happy to have you here too, and we would love to have you participate by registering and signing up for a class so that you can be here in the front row and be joining in the conversation. Get Set Up, it does not have any kind of financial connection with any of the products, services, or companies that we work with. So I wanted to let you know that, or remind you of that. No financial relationship. This is what we're going to talk about today: how to make some of your own spice blends. Now, we only picked a small portion of them to talk about, but I will go through some of those, and we'll talk about the shelf life of common herbs and spices. And that is an eye opener. I think it's something that we need to keep an eye on so that we know that we're using the freshest herbs and spices. And I'm going to just do a little muting here because I'm hearing some noise. And Phil, thanks for being here today. I wanted to introduce Phil to the group here. Phil is keeping an eye on our chat. He's also keeping an eye on who's entering the class. And one of the things you'll see us asking you to do, by the way, I wanted to mention this earlier, is asking you to come on camera. So I would hope that you will please do so, at least in the beginning of the class, so that I can see you. We've had some issues with people coming in and bombing the classes. So one of the ways that we can discourage that is by seeing everybody on camera initially. And I know that not all of you want to do that ongoing, but if you would please do that, that would help us very much. We're really trying to protect you and protect the environment here from those people who would come on and kind of wreak havoc. So Phil is here to help us with that. And due to that circumstance also, we are enabling a waiting room, which means that 5 minutes after the class has begun, you won't be able to get into classes. So for anybody who's experienced that, I'm sorry if that has been a problem for you, but that's the reason why. It is all about security and keeping everyone in the class free from all of those troublesome people who would jump in and wreak havoc. So anyway, Phil, thank you for being here for that. And if you wouldn't mind, could you also keep an eye on the microphones? I think we were getting a little background noise. We're good now though. So shelf life of common herbs and spices, and then how do you make them and how do you store them? And then I have some recipes for spice blends. And I am going to send you an email out after the class that's going to give you all these spice blend recipes in a chart. So you can look at them side by side and listed with all of the herbs and spices that they include, because a lot of them include the same herbs and spices, which is great to know. So I have that in a form for you that also has a column for you to take an inventory. So I'll show you that. That way you can very quickly and easily see what you have on your shelf and what you need to get in order to make the recipes that we're going to talk about today. So I know Tony said he was interested in a fried chicken rub or spice, and we talked a little bit about that in the beginning, but what do you want to explore today? Is there something in particular you were interested in? Anyone?
Tandoori or Indian spices.
Ah, okay. All right. Thank you. That
Greg
may-
has a question here.
Okay, go ahead and read
Um,
that, Phil.
What is the difference between paprika and smoked paprika?
Well, smoked paprika is definitely, well, smoked, and it has a smoky flavor, and that is really the primary difference. It's in that smoky flavor.
And I think it's also used for roasting almonds. The smoky one.
The smoky one is used for roasting almonds. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else have experience with smoked paprika? Yeah.
I have a question on like a no salt, general mix. The ones I find in the regular grocery stores, I don't like them at all.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the ones I found at like Penzi Spices, they're really good, but they get really expensive to buy all the time.
Mhm.
So I was just wondering if there was some kind of general, no salt thing that you could just use for, various things instead of salt. Not that it has to take the place of salt, but you know what I'm saying. Like I said, the ones in the store, I just don't like the taste.
Okay, I get you. I understand that. That's why we do our own spice blends, actually, because then we can really do something with those that storage or with that salt content. So having a recipe for your own allows you to just leave the salt right out of it. So you still get all of the flavorings of all of the other herbs and spices and just no salt, no monosodium glutamate, none of those things that you don't want to have. So there's no reason why those things won't work as well as you would like them to, just leaving the salt out. Does that make sense? If you make your own and just don't add any salt?
Yeah, I mean that the whole thing is they're marketed as a salt alternative, like a to replace salt, but I just don't like the taste. Like I said, the one at Penzi's is great, but it's just really expensive to keep buying all the time. So
Do you know what it has in it, Bill?
I can look, but I doubt they're probably going to list everything, because then why couldn't you just make your own?
Yeah, they probably don't list the proportions, but I think.
Yeah.
They list everything, but they don't list the proportions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then it would be kind of up to you, or up to you to kind of.
Well, my understanding too is that, at least in the US, they have to put it in the order of the amount that's in it. So the first ingredients are the most, and then by the time you get to the end, it's the least. So yeah, I guess I could try that.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
I put a money saving tip for Bill in the chat.
Thank you.
Penzi's.
Oh, thank you, Jeannie. That's great, from Penzi's, because Jeannie's are at least one of our Penzi people here. So she's a good person to talk to about Penzi if you have any questions. And I see that I have a hand up. Is that Lois or Loie?
Laura?
Laura? Loie?
Yes.
L-O-I-E? Yeah. No,
Really?
I'm looking at Loie, who has her hand up and is in the car.
Oh,
Or is that Lois? Loie?
Loie.
Loie, do you have a question? Okay. Well, Laura, do you have a question?
There we go. I have a question. First of all, I want to say I love the fact that once again, you're on top of everything in combining spices, because one of my favorite spices that I discovered about a year ago was pumpkin pie spice. And so I started making it myself because I like to throw in some extra things, and I love the taste of it, and I throw it in everything. But one of the things that I was exploring was anise powder, star anise, and fennel. And I bought it on Amazon, huge quantity. So I've been giving it out to everybody, but I've been throwing it in everything, but I haven't really found any recipe in particular that suggests you use it, but I think it's healthy.
The star anise and the fennel.
And fennel.
Uh-huh.
I used to use fresh fennel, but anyway, so looking for recipes using those.
Yeah, that's a little challenging too. This is where we start to get creative, because it's not like you find a lot of recipes where it says use your spice blend.
Yes.
They give you all the spices to use in the recipe. So then you have to decide whether you want to make them up individually for that recipe, or you want to create something that's going to work for you over time that you like. Katie, you have a question.
Yes, I can't have ginger because of the blood thinner that I take. It
Yes.
really affects it a lot. And that pumpkin pie spice, I would like to know what combination of spices I could do to make pumpkin pie with pumpkin without adding ginger.
Okay, all right. Well, I can certainly
That may not
provide
be
that.
something we can talk about today, but
So pumpkin pie spice
I'm sorry?
isn't one that I have on the list, but I can send you a recipe for pumpkin pie spice, and you can eliminate the ginger,
okay.
which is true with a lot.
And I
of
also
spices.
Googled it, and you'll find several recipes, and then just take out what you don't like and add something. That's why I add a little fennel to it too.
Yeah, and that's where what Laura's very correct in this. These spice blends are a suggestion, a starting place, and then you can leave things out. You can put other things in, make substitutions the way that you want, and that's the beauty of doing all this ourselves. Marlene, what's your question?
I'd like to know is, can you make a spice with a little bit of salt in it without having to use the actual salt?
Absolutely, you can. Sure, you can use less. You're asking if you can use less salt than what it asks for? Or is that what you're asking? Can you use less salt?
Well, or any kind of salt. Yeah, I've heard that there's a salt blend and spice, but I'd like to know what it is.
A salt blend and spice.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are many of those seasoned seasoning salts that are available, recipes for that. They do contain salt.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm hearing a few things here that might end up in your email after the class, because I don't.
You know, one of the things I just started doing because of high blood pressure, I was told to cut back on salt. And I noticed that a lot of the, salt alternative things, it's it's salt and paprika, like seasoning salt. Because first I thought, sounding kind of silly, I thought, okay, well, I'll use seasoning salt. There's other stuff in there and there's less salt, but the other stuff that's in there is primarily sugar. So a lot of the seasoning salt is paprika and salt. So what I started doing, maybe it's cheating and maybe it's wishful thinking, is just taking half salt and half paprika. And I've been using that instead of salt. I haven't really noticed any difference. It's probably better. I mean, because at least it's half the salt.
You're not using twice as much, right?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not that cheating. It's not that bad.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Good ways. And any of these blends that we make, if they call for salt and you want a little salt in, but you don't want all that full amount, that's another way to do it. Just continue to decrease the amount of salt until your taste buds have reconditioned themselves, much like with sugar. Recondition yourself to be more sensitive to salt.
And if anybody's looking to do that, which is one of the reasons why I kind of took this class, is to reduce the salt, is he says it's actually not the salt that you shake on your food. It's the salt you put in while cooking, and it's the preservative salt that the manufacturers put in. That's where all your salt comes in, a lot of your salt. And he said that he said the salt that you put on your food after it's done before you eat it, you get that salt taste right away. That other
Right.
salt that's in there, you get the sodium, but you don't get the taste.
Very
So
good.
that's a good tip. So I started cooking more myself and just not using salt. Like, the first thing they do when they tell you pasta, throw salt in the water. And frankly, I don't notice the difference. So the only time I use salt is at the very end. So in case anyone's interested.
I think that's an excellent tip, Bill. Very important. Very important.
Deb, can I say correct that I agree with Bill because I've been doing that for a couple of years. I don't cook with salt and always have a salt shaker on the table for anybody that wants to use it. But as you said, a lot of the products have salt in it. So there's no need to add extra except at the very end. And that's why I use a lot more spices. If you got a lot of spice going in it, you don't need the salt.
Yeah, it's a good strategy to beef up the spices and the herbs as a way to just not miss the salt so much. And yeah, use fewer processed foods. And we talk a lot about that in my healthy meals on a budget class too, how to use whole foods. So just give me a quick hand raise for those of you on camera or those of you who can hit the reaction button. Do you make your blends now? Does anybody do that right now? Okay, Laura, few of you, Katie, a little bit. Okay, all right. So let's take a look. Why should we make our own spice blends? And you nailed a lot of this here, in our conversation. First of all, you can use the spices and the herbs that you already have to create a lot so that you don't, when you're into meal prep the day of a meal, have to spend a lot of time getting everything out and measuring it. You get one spice mix container out and that's what you use. So that takes a lot of time to prepare. When you're preparing your meal, you're getting all of those things out. So use what you already have. Mix it together. It's ease of use. You're controlling your sodium, and a lot of herbs and spice blends that you buy, urban spice blends that you buy, contain MSG, monosodium glutamate. So that's found a lot of times in things like taco seasoning packets and those packets that you buy. So you can make spice blends that don't have monosodium glutamate, and MSG can have an effect on people who are sensitive to it, headaches, that sort of thing. So you want to try to avoid that. It's a preservative and flavor enhancer. It helps you add flavor and variety to any meal very fast. You can have the same meal and have it taste quite different just depending upon what spice blend you use. It's also a real money saver. Bill, you were talking about Penzeys being so expensive, and by making your own blends, you can really save on that, save time. And they make great gifts. So if you're making spice and herb blends, you can make a quantity of them, get some really pretty bottles, and make up a blend for your friends. One little bottle with a nice bow or a piece of twine on it and a label is just a nice little gift to take to somebody when you're going there for dinner, perhaps, or just a little friend gift when you're seeing someone. So great way to use them. And this is the look you can go for. Okay, so shelf life is a problem though with our herbs and spices. And one of the things that I've learned over the time is that I probably am not going to buy another huge one of these. I use a lot of thyme. This might not be a great example. I use a lot of rosemary. I do use a lot of cinnamon, but this is probably overkill on my cinnamon. And so vanilla extract and salt will stay indefinitely. But in general, whole spices, the ones that haven't been ground, like these are cardamom pods, they will be good for maybe 3 to 4 years. If you can get whole spices, they will last longer, and that's good. And then when it comes to ground spices or whole leaf herbs like the thyme leaves here or the rosemary, you've got maybe 1 to 3 years. It just depends on the herb. So what I'm doing in the email that I'm sending you is attaching, well, I'm attaching a document. The document's going to have everything in one and all the information in one, that table I talked about, and then some sources for recipes and also articles that you can go to look up specifically the shelf life of particular herbs and spices. So I want to make sure that you have lots of references after this class is over. This is just in general. So we want to go through our herbs and spices fairly quickly. And when it comes to making a spice blend, it's best if it's something we're making that we'll use within 6 months to a year, because it just depends upon these combinations that are in the blend. So do any of you have old spices in your pantry right now? Yeah.
Yep.
So a couple of tips for that. You can take them and gently toast them in a skillet in order to revive them a little bit. So if you want to use them, that's one way to bring them back a bit. You can also saute them a little bit in oil before you get things cooking in your pan. So if you still want to use those and you want to get the most out of those are two strategies that you can use. You can also take those completely expired herbs and throw them in a pot and do a simmering potpourri on the stove. I've also heard of people who've taken their herbs and put them on their pathways in their gardens or in their around their property, so that when they're stepped on, they release a nice smell. And if nothing else, they can be composted back into the earth instead of just throwing them away. So just sprinkle them around liberally and have the benefit of that nice fragrance. So what do you know already about storing herbs and spices?
They should be stored in a cool, dark area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important. Cool and dark, so out of the sunlight and away from your stove, but also someplace where you'll see them so that you'll use them. Out of sight, out of mind for me sometimes. So these spice blends are going to find a more prominent place for me to remember to use them. And when you're going to make these spice blends, you can get a little out of control. And once you start making them, you start making them. But then you have them and you have to use them. So start with what you like. If you make tacos a lot, you might say, all right, I'm going to learn to make my own taco seasoning blend. Or if you like that pumpkin pie spice and you find yourself mixing it up a lot because you're doing it for individual recipes, then put that on your list and say, I want to make that pumpkin pie spice blend. And then take an inventory of what you already have and see what you can make from that. And be sure to make it in a quantity that you're going to use. And what happens with, and this is another thing I'm going to do differently. These herbs are in plastic, the typical McCormick's in plastic. I am going to move more toward glass. Now, sometimes I won't be able to do that. Sometimes I'll be still buying plastic, but plastic is porous and plastic can pull some of the, they don't stay as well in plastic as they do in glass. So they can pull some of the fragrance, some of the oils out of the herbs and get absorbed into the plastic and out of the herbs. So try to use a glass jar. And one thing that I have learned that I wonder if any of you have also learned is to mark when I buy my spices. Do you do that? Anybody do that now?
Yes, I mark when I buy everything now.
Yeah. Yeah, because how do you know? You think you've had that. I could have herbs in there, spices in there for a decade. I wouldn't know. The years go by so fast. So yeah, put a date on there and put a date on your blends when you make them as well. The other thing that I would do with my blends is put the recipe on them as well, because if you found a blend that you like, for instance, I've made this. I did a real bad thing here. This, I don't even know how long I've had this, but I made up this, I'm pretty sure it's a rub for meat. I don't have it labeled. I think I'm going to remember, and I don't have the ingredients on it. So what am I going to do? Am I going to throw it away? It has a good bit of salt in it. I'll probably use it. I just tasted it and decided whether I'd like it on something. But in the future, I'm going to be much more aware of that, and I'm going to put the ingredients in so I know what it's composed of. So here are some spice blends that we're going to try. I'm not mixing them all up today. I'm going to show them to you, but this is what I'm going to send your way, with the exception of the garam masala. I did take that one off the list for today, but I did hear somebody say they were interested in more Indian spices. So maybe I'll throw that back on and send it in the email to you.
I have a suggestion too. Now that it just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
Indian food. I love Indian food.
Okay.
If you have an Indian grocery store in your area, they should be the first place you go to for spices. They get, I mean, the things that you buy in the store that you pay $5 and $6 for, you'll pay $1 there. And it's the same stuff, but they have it in bags.
Wow.
Sell to a lot of, Indian restaurants. Like, for example, I can give you, instead of paying $5.95 for cinnamon sticks at your grocery store, you'll pay $2.99 and probably get 4 times the amount. So you'll be amazed when you go. I mean, when I went there and saw an entire aisle of nothing but spices. I mean, it was amazing. So yeah, definitely check out if you have an Indian grocery store at wherever you live. So
great suggestion. Thank you, Bill. That is so true. The other ethnic markets as well. I think Indian would probably have the most in terms of herbs, but Asian markets also have a lot of different spices and sauces and things like that you can get for a fraction of the price that you would pay for them in the regular grocery store. So I thank you.
And one last thing, I noticed that you have these big, huge McCormick, like, I don't know, whatever they are, those really huge ones.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a place called Gordon Food Service. It's a restaurant supply store. They sell those big ones. And like, if I were to go to our regular grocery store, it's McCormick and it's like $6. But if you go there, you can buy that one for $6.
Yes.
So it's definitely worth it to check out those other places.
It's a really good point, because even though I might not use, this is so much, and I probably won't use it within that 1 to 3 year period, but I'll probably use more than I would with the smaller jar. I'll use more of it. I'd run out of the smaller jar. So it's worth it, because yes, you can get it for just about the same price if you're going to a bulk store, Restaurant Supply or Sam's.
I wonder if you could freeze, like split it up and freeze it to make it last longer if you go to get stuff. I buy the popular stuff from like Costco sometimes too.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I checked into that, Jean, because I had that same question. Could you store spices and herbs in the freezer? And the answer is no, because what happens when you take them out and use them is that there's condensation then that happens, and it kind of destroys the spice. So I was a little disappointed in that, because I thought that would be a good thing to do. Yeah.
I hate to throw the excess away because it seems so wasteful. But another tip is, if you have a lot of different things and you don't think you're going to use a lot of it, is if you have a bulk food store that sells, spices and stuff by the ounce. Because I've got one near me.
Yes, that's a great idea too. And health food stores do that very often too. I know one of mine does that, and so I can just get a small amount, and that feels better just to have enough that you're going to use that and use it within the time period. Laura, you have your hand up.
Yeah, another idea is I'll give it away to friends in small containers, or get a group of people together and do a mix together. Because when you buy the large quantities, yes, there's an issue of how do you get rid of it? How can you eat it fast enough?
I love that idea. You could take a look at that list of ingredients and buddy up with somebody else that might be wanting to do it. And one of you could buy half of the needed herbs, and the other could buy the others. and you can split it up. Good idea. Have a spice club. Yeah. Okay, so here's what, can you see my document here? It's like a chart.
Yes.
All right. now,
Yes.
I wish I could have fit this on 2 pages, but I couldn't, or on 1 page, but I couldn't. It had to go onto 2. But what I've done here is listed all of the herbs and spices that are contained in all of these recipes down this column, and then given you a column to take your inventory so that you could see what you didn't have that you might want to include in a store list. And then these are the recipes for each of the blends. And they're color coded by the quantity that they make, the size of the jar that you might want to use to contain these. So down here at the bottom, blue is for a 4-ounce jar, 8 is for, yellow is for an 8-ounce jar. So on average, you're going to get 8 tablespoons or a half cup of blend for a 4-ounce container, and roughly 16 tablespoons for an 8-ounce jar. So some of these, none of these that I've put together here for you actually have 16 tablespoons in, but they may have more than what would fit in an 8-ounce jar. So that's a handy chart that I hope will be useful to you to try. And if you look at that and feel like it's too much, you can cut it in half. If you just want to try it, cut it in half. Or if you feel like you're going to like that and you want more, go ahead and double it or triple it even if you're going to use it a lot. And I've pulled these recipes from a variety of sources. So you can click on any of these links to go in there and not only get those recipes and actually variations on several, you can also go in and see how they recommend to use some of those herbs and spices. So the blends. Here are the herb expiration dates if you want to take a look at that in more detail for specific herbs and spices. And then what I've done here is given you some, just some ideas. So with the Jamaican jerk seasoning, here's a rub. And this can be applied to a lot of seasonings. You can use a wet rub with a tablespoon of olive oil and a tablespoon and a half of the spice blend to the to 1 to 1.5 pounds of meat. So that's a general rule of thumb. And then here's a recipe, Rasta pasta, that uses the Jamaican jerk spice blend, just to give you something that you can use. And I've done that with each one of the blends. The taco seasoning blend, you can use 2 to 3 tablespoons. I think 3 tablespoons is actually a lot for a pound of meat. That's what the instruction says. So you might start with 2. And of course, just like the taco seasoning pack mentions, you want to put some water in with that and let it cook with your taco meat until it cooks down and it gets to the consistency that you want. And then there's 40 recipes. It's just a website to take a look at 40 other recipes that use taco seasoning. So why not move beyond tacos? And yes, in this recipe, there's salt, but Bill, you can eliminate the salt from this recipe too, or cut it drastically down. So recipes that use Cajun seasoning, which can easily be used as a nice dry rub or also as a wet rub. So I want to talk a moment about rubs. How many of you have been using dry rubs or wet rubs? Anybody know or want to weigh in on how you use rubs?
I use dry rubs because I get the blends from Penzeys, and it's easy just to shake one thing on for a really quick meal.
Yeah.
And there's some blends that I really like.
Yes.
I've never really used a dry rub. Well, no, I take that back. I have used dry rubs. I've done like herbs with a little bit of olive oil and then rubbed on like meat.
Okay, so
But that's not a I mean, that's to me isn't a blend. It's more of a, I make the recipe and mix the stuff and use it right then.
Okay, so you mix that up as you're using it. So you can use, anybody else use a dry rub or a wet rub?
On grilling meats.
Okay. Do you use both?
Both.
Both. Okay. How do you know Juana? Or how do you decide when to use a wet and when to use a dry?
It's the mood. I don't really, see a difference. It depends on and time. If I do a wet rub, then I usually make sure I have plenty of time to marinate.
You let it marinate. Yeah, I think that is generally the rule of thumb with using wet rubs versus dry rubs. A wet rub will be something almost like a marinade where you want it to draw into the meat over a period of time and also help it to retain moisture, because oftentimes you're using it with a meat that might be even a little tougher or something that requires better softening. So a wet rub will help achieve that. Whereas a dry rub is something that you would put on just before you're going to grill a steak or chicken, something that you want to have a little bit of a crust on the outside. So that's where a dry rub might be helpful. But any of these seasonings can be used either as a wet rub or as a dry rub. And then the Italian dressing recipe is here. So we have a mix for that and a mix for buttermilk ranch dressing. Has anyone ever made their own Italian dressing or buttermilk ranch dressing mix? Anybody ever done that?
I make my own Italian, but not butter. I'm not a ranch fan.
Okay, yeah, if you're not a ranch fan, then you won't want to make this one. But I'll tell you, this is one that I really liked because I really get hungry for ranch dressing, and I hated to buy those envelopes all the time and use those. So I made my own, and I really enjoy it, and it can be used for dips as well. So the Italian dressing recipe, same thing. It's so handy to be able to take that, and I'm going to show you. Yeah, here's my Italian dressing. And I have the instruction for that right on here. It's a 1/4 cup of vinegar, 2/3 of a cup of oil, 2 tablespoons of water, and 2 tablespoons of this mix. So butter. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got a question from Tree. Are you going to email the list of spices to them?
You bet. I'm at this whole document that we're looking at right now. I'm just showing it to you because this is exactly what you're going to get. So I wanted to make sure that I went over it with you so you knew what you were getting. And so each one is going to give you, or this document's going to give you all the recipes and then sources for all of the recipes, and then suggestions for how to use all of the recipes. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's stop this share right now and just talk about these need to get my view back just a second. There we go. Let's talk about these different blends and what we do with them. How do you store your blends right now? What do you use? Your herbs and things. Laura, you said you make your own. What do you use to store them? I don't see her. She walked away. There you are.
When you mean, what do I do to store them? I put them in containers. I say when I have completed some of the original spices, I save the container, and then, as you said, I remark it and put what my mix is, and so I store them in similar containers that I got the spices in. And one of the things I noticed, your square containers. So now I'm obsessive about the square containers, and there's an organic spice that comes in little square containers, and so they're nice because you can double them up and put them in a caddy and just tip it over one by one, and you get to see what's behind them.
I like that idea. And those are the things to think about. You could be buying all kinds of different containers for this. And I like your square idea. I use that for every other thing. But I have to tell you, I got caught up in the moment when I was out shopping and I bought these ball jars because they're so cute. I couldn't help myself. And so this is a 4 ounce And this is the 8-ounce jar. I have these for canning purposes anyway, so I just repurposed them into spice jars. But it is nice to have uniform sizes, whatever you use. And so there are a number of ways you can store the spices. You can store them sitting up. And if you're storing them sitting up, you probably want your labels on the side. But you can also get those things that you can pull out your shelf or pull out your drawer and have a shelf in there where you're looking at the tops of the labels. So it depends on how you're looking at your blends so that you can see them easily where you want to label them. So I was going to mix up one recipe here today, and that is the fajita blend. And I just have a little bowl and a little whisk. And this is calling for I did put them over here. 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. So here's something I also think is important about spice jars or whatever it is that you're going to use. It's nice to find something that you can put a spoon into. So some of these, like this, even the small mason jar that I have here, I can't put a full tablespoon into it, so I'd have to do it in smaller quantities, like do 3 teaspoons for a tablespoon. So 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a tablespoon of chili powder. And I can't see what I mean. I can't do this. So it's nice to have a wider top because then I don't spill. But then on the other hand, you don't have to worry about being extremely precise either. And then it calls for 2 teaspoons of cumin. And that could be one that I didn't get out of my cupboard. I do use a lot of cumin, so I have the large cumin. 2 teaspoons of that. Two teaspoons of smoked paprika. And that clearly has a very smoky flavor or fragrance. Have you ever, you know how barbecued potato chips, some of them have that smoky flavor to them? That's what this smoked paprika smells like. Getting down to the bottom of my smoked paprika. I think I can just put the rest in there actually.
And it's hard to find that, I think.
It is kind of hard to find that. Alexa, put smoked paprika on the list.
I put smoked paprika on your shopping list.
She said, okay. And a teaspoon of sugar.
My Alexa added it to my shopping list.
What did you say about her? She does what?
She heard you and added smoked paprika to my shopping list.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's funny. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I could go with less. But this is also perhaps making me, Bill, not want to put salt on my finished product if I'm making fajitas too. So that's,
I noticed you were using ground cumin in there.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually bought.
Where can I buy smoked paprika?
Could you just mute yourself there?
Amazon's Choice is the spice way smoked.
There, thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just wondering. I actually bought. I thought, some recipes I see for Indian food have cumin seeds.
Yes.
So I bought a small bag of cumin seeds at the Indian grocery store, and I figured, I will use a mortar and pestle to grind them up.
Yeah.
My wife bought me one for Christmas. Really good one too, but hey, even against marble, those seeds are really hard to grind up.
They are tough.
I now I'm looking for a spice grinder, I guess, and I did do a little research, and they said if you use a spice grinder, only use it to grind spices, not anything else, because I guess it just leaves a taste, I guess, or anything else. So yeah, that's my new thing now. I'm looking for that.
Well, and I might have just done the same. I took the plunge and did this. I wasn't going to because of exactly why you said that, Bill, that it leaves a smell. But I wanted to practice. This is my coffee grinder, my little coffee grinder. And this is a Krups. And it does a great job. It's the same thing. And it might come around. It might be okay. If I grind a little old coffee in there or something and get that odor. But here's what I did. I ground some cumin seeds today. Can you see those?
Uh-huh.
So I did grind them, and it still wasn't quite as fine. I guess I could have kept grinding. It might matter how many you have in. I only did a few because I just didn't need it, but I wanted to see how it worked. The same thing true of those cardamom pods.
Right.
So it didn't get exactly fine. There's fine stuff in there. So I would want to know, I wonder how fine you can actually get some of these things that have hard.
Yeah, just something I noticed.
Yeah.
Deb, taste a little.
Taste a little of which? The
Of the cardamom seed, and you can see whether it's going to be fine enough to.
Well, it's just that it has the shell in it. So there must be a way to get that out of there.
If you put it on meat, it may not make any difference.
No, that doesn't matter at all. You're right. That wouldn't matter. So if I was putting it into something like, the reason I have these cardamom pods is because I make chai tea and I use it to spice my chai. I would probably put it into something like a little bouquet garni or something that would hold it so it wouldn't get into my tea. Okay, so this was it always looks so pretty, just like those pictures on the slides. And I've thawed some shrimp, so I'm going to have this shrimp fajitas tonight. What I'm going to do is put this in a bowl with the shrimp, maybe a tablespoon of this with the shrimp, and mix it around and let them sit for a few minutes. And then I'm going to toss the vegetables, which will be onions and peppers, in with a little bit of the mix and fry those up. And once they're soft to the degree, close to the degree that I want them to be, I'll add the shrimp in so that they can get done in the last couple of minutes. They only take a few until they turn pink.
Don't overcook.
Yeah, so that's that. Now you'll want to have a good funnel for your blends, because that's the next thing. You do this and then you say, how am I doing this? And then you try to take a spoon and it spills all over the place. So you want to have a funnel. And I have a dilemma because this should work okay for this blend, but the hole's not very big. If you have herbs in your blend, you'll need a funnel that has a wide enough hole that it doesn't get clogged in there. This one is my canning funnel, much bigger, but whoops, a little too big. So I think this will work for this blend, but yeah, you want to have a funnel that works for you. So
thanks, Deb.
What's that?
I said thank you. I'm getting ready to leave.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you for coming, Marlene. So here we go. You just have to tap it away a little bit. And you can see this particular recipe doesn't make a lot. So you get to just give it a try and see if you really like it. And I'll set that aside so I remember to mark it. I just have, I buy these labels for freezer containers and I just pulled those off and labeled. But, you know, you can go to Michael's and get all kinds of very cute labels to label your spices if you're very interested in having a pretty spice rack. So, okay. What else can we talk about here? What else would you like to talk about?
I have something to add. I did check with Alexa and she said, guess what? Amazon has smoked paprika. She didn't say how many ounces, but it's $6 and they can deliver it to you tomorrow if you get on Amazon quickly and order it.
Very good. There you go. Okay. Thank you for that. Smoked paprika in the house. Okay. What else can we talk about? I'm just scanning at the, I'm just scanning the chat now. Where can you buy small glass spice containers? You mean like these? That was Ellen. Is this what you're thinking about? Ellen, are you still here?
Maybe the ones that are square.
Oh, the square ones. Okay. So Laura, how about that? Where did you get your?
I bought them with spices in them, and it's called and I got them at a local supermarket. I'm trying Vaughn's, and so I'm not sure if it's a Vaughn's product, if it's their spice, because it. In fact, I'll show you.
You could probably try it like Bed Bath and Beyond.
And you can also dollar stores. I've
You
got
see that?
stores, and I know Michael sells different glass, different jar sizes. But you can order them online too. My son was into infusing oils, and I ordered a lot of jars online.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, some of the dollar stores too, at least the one Dollar Tree, if you order like a quantity, you can have it shipped to the store. So if you're stocking up on spice jars, it may make sense to do something like that if they don't have them in the store.
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
That's great. Thank you so much, all of you.
Yeah. Loretta, you have your hand raised?
Yes. After Juana said about the infused oils, is there a class on infusing oils? Because sometimes I like to think if I crush up some garlic and basil and put it in some olive oil, maybe for a day or two. I know there's an issue with botulism with the garlic, so I was just kind of wondering, do you guys have a class on infusing oils?
We don't yet, but we may move in that direction, especially if we have somebody who is an expert in that area or who does quite a bit of that. Anybody here do that? Garlic is a particular problem, but yeah. Okay, so we will add that to I'll add that to my list. Thank you, Loretta. And it's definitely a good way to use some of those more expired herbs too, because they can be revitalized in that oil, and so you have a win-win.
Deb, and you know what else I use a lot of the spice for is just soups. I make a lot of soup. We eat soup 3 or 4 times a week, and so whatever soup recipe you have, throw in some extra spices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for that, because I'm going to switch back. I had some other thoughts about how you might be able to use these spice blends, just general ideas. So I'll come back and share those with you.
Oh, look at this.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So how can you use these? So lots of times they're used by folks to season rice and beans. Think about rice and beans. They're a blank palette. So when you're eating those kind of bland foods, you can spice them up with any of those things really that I've shown you. You can use them as dry or wet rubs, as we talked about. You can add them to oil and brush them on fish. Be very tasty. Add them to soups, just as Laura was saying. They're great for roasted vegetables. So any of these blends you can toss with vegetables and a little olive oil and roast in the oven at 425 for about 20-25 minutes. You can add them to a salad dressing that you already have, a vinaigrette of some sort. You have a very plain vinaigrette. You just spice it up with one of these blends. You can add it to yogurt for a dip, or to sour cream for a dip. make a marinade, and that goes beyond oil. You might add vinegar in there too, which is also something that would help make a meat more tender. So if you're grilling a flank steak or something that requires a little more tenderness to be palatable, you can throw in some lemon juice. You can sprinkle these on popcorn as well. So you can try using a spray, like using olive oil that you can spray from the can. I've used that in place of butter, and then just putting some of these seasoning blends on, and so that it sticks, and that around. So you can flavor.
Another great idea.
There you go. Okay, so that's the end of what I have to present, but happy to talk more about questions that you had. Help me remember what it is that you would like me to send you afterward that I didn't show you today in the class. I remembered that you talked about a pumpkin pie spice. What else was there? Pumpkin pie spice blend. Anything else?
Indian.
Oh, the Indian, the garam masala. I'll send you the garam masala.
And I don't know whether you have one for curry.
Okay.
When they say something that you could, I took the sourdough bread making class.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned something called herbes de Provence or something like that.
Yes.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, herbes de Provence is quite a combination of many different herbs, and Provence, of course, is a region in Spain for which, and of course, it's known for
France.
Herbs. So I'm just checking that out to tell you what is in that. So it's made of thyme and basil, rosemary, tarragon, savory, marjoram, oregano, and bay leaf. So
okay, so just a lot, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Right, exactly.
I use an herb Provence that has lavender in it, and it's really lovely using it as a rub on lamb with Dijon mustard.
Oh yeah, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, that's what lavender is included in the bottle that I have also.
Interesting. I had a bottle, a bag maybe of that I brought back from France, and I had it so long, and it was such a large bag. It's been so long, and I finally took it out and sprinkled it in my garden, but it still had fragrance to it. I hated to part with it.
Throw it in soup.
Throw it in soup. Yep, throw it in soup. Okay, so how is our time? Well, okay. So the last thing that I'll say is, here's my email address, debtheguide@getsetup. And if you would have any ideas, additional ideas for classes, or if you have a favorite fudge recipe, I'd love to have you on to talk about fudge. Sometime in June is National Fudge Month Day, June 16th. And if you do any kind of creations, take pictures of the things that you do, go ahead and tag us on Facebook. Here's my hashtag, Get Set Up Deb Cooking. And you can also tag Get Set Up, so your pictures will share with Get Set Up.
You know, you would make my sister's day if you could find a recipe. She's been looking for this stuff. She had it once for a long time ago. I've never found it in years. Called rum raisin fudge.
Oh.
I've never had it, but she says it's the best thing on the planet.
Wow.
So
okay, there's a challenge.
Yeah, rum raisin. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Maybe I'll sign up for that class, and maybe I'll be blessed that you find a recipe.
That sounds like a challenge. So that's a challenge to all of us. If you know that or find it anywhere, send it my way. Or great.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you very much all for coming. Please do sign up for more classes and bring your friends. And
Deb, I wanted you to know I'm making the cauliflower chowder today.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Take a picture, hashtag it. Love to know what you think. Thanks, Lana. All right.
Thank you, Deb. Great class.
here.
Thank you, Deb. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Say
you.
bye to everybody.
Deb.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. Bye.
bye-bye.
How do I get out?
So go down to the bottom and look for the red button that says leave this meeting or find it. Take your cursor down to the.
I'm sure, wait, I can just cut it out here, I think.
It's okay. I'm going to close so you'll get it.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Bye, Ellen.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.